Okay guys, welcome back to episode 2 of our rolling cube game. Today we are going to be working on actually getting the cube to roll from one face onto the other face in the direction that you obviously tell it to roll. So we're going to be using the arrow keys on the keyboard to make the cube roll onto the next face. And to do that, we are going to have to somehow get the cube to rotate on its edge in the direction of you asking it to rotate. So I'll give you a little bit of I'll try and explain it as well as I can. So here's our cube. What we wanted to do is we wanted to move on to the next face here once we press our right arrow, because you can see this is how our game is currently set up. So when we go and press our right arrow when we start the game, we want our cube to now move into this place over here, but we don't want it to just slide across like that. What we wanted to do is, if I go back, what we now wanted to do is we wanted to rotate along this edge. So this edge will stay right here where it is, and then the entire cube will now just rotate onto this face. So this face over here is going to be at the bottom and it will land up over here, so you won't be able to see this face. And then once you move that, either the next move will be to move this face on to land up on here, or to move this face and then put it over there. So if that makes sense, that will then rotate into there, and then this one will then rotate onto this cube or this platform. So hopefully that makes sense. We will hopefully get that working today. So let's go and, what am I doing? Let's go and try and get that working. So the first things first, I have created a new move script. So let's just close that because it's already open over here. So here's our move script. It's pretty empty for now. We're going to start working on it. I don't think we need our start methods. I'm going to get rid of that. But the first thing we need to do is we need to create a speed variable, because we want to control the speed that our cube moves from one face onto the next. So I have a whole list of steps here that we have to go through to get this to work. Hopefully it will work by the time we reach our last step. But let's go and create a variable to control the speed. So first thing we need to do is let's create a public int. I think it's going to be an int. We'll call it public int speed. We'll set it to about 200 for now, just to see how fast it is. We could change it later on. And then the next thing we want to do is we need to create a coroutine. So we're going to go and say enumerator, and we will call this roll, if I can spell it, roll. And everything we do to get our cube to roll over is going to be done inside of this roll coroutine. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is go to our list and see what's next. So we've created a coroutine. We need to create a remaining angle. So this is going to tell our cube how much more it can rotate. So because it is, let's try and get our cube here. If you can see, it's going to rotate on the y-axis, I think. Nope, on the z-axis. So you can see that it's currently at 0, and we only want it to rotate 90 degrees in one direction until the next face is currently perpendicular or flat on top of the platform. So you can see that's 90 degrees in each direction. So depending on which direction you go, it's going to rotate. So we'll go set that back, and then we will create a remaining angle that's going to be equal to 90 degrees, because once we start rotating the cube, we're going to remove or subtract stuff from the angle to tell our cube how much it's got left to rotate. So we'll create a float, and this is going to be a remaining. And we'll go and set that to 90. So we'll set that like that. Okay, now we can go and see what's next. So now we need to add a while loop, and in the while loop, we're going to tell our cube to rotate until our angle or remaining angle is greater than 0. So let's go and create a while loop, and here we can go and say while, or that needs to be inside our method. So here let's go and say while the remaining angle is greater than 0. So in other words, there is still something remaining for our cube to rotate to. Then we need to go and do something else. So we've created a speed, well, that we probably should have done that later. But now let's go and create a rotation angle. And then we need to go and create a cube we need to go and rotate the cube by that angle. So let's go and do that. So the first thing we need to go and do is create a float. What did I say it was going to be? It is going to be a rotation angle. So this is going to be our rotation angle, and that is going to be set to, I think it was time. Yeah, we need to go and set this to be time.delta time. So time.delta time, and this is going to be times by, or multiplied by the speed that we just created. So in our case, it's going to be multiplied by 200. And then now I would assume we need to go and rotate the cube. So let's go rotate the cube using that rotation angle that we've just used. So once we've created the rotation angle, let's go and use it. So now let's go and say transform.rotate, and then we can use the rotation angle, and then we'll say 0 and 0, and that's fine. So now we need to go and update our our remaining angle. So update the angle. So our remaining angle is going to be equal to, well, we're just going to subtract the rotation angle. So let's just go remaining angle minus equals rotation angle. So that should be fine. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to go and return so that the loop can finish. So here we can go and say yield. Why is it not typing it? Yield return. Oh my gosh. Clearly I can't type today. We'll turn null, and then that should be fine. Okay, so we've returned null, and now we need to go and call our coroutine from the update method. So in our update method, this is where we're going to listen out for one of our arrow keys that have been pressed. So for now, we're going to use I think we're going to use our right arrow key, because that's where our platform is, to the right of our cube. So let's go and say, we need to look for an input. So if input.get key, this is going to be key code.right arrow, wherever that is. Right. I'm just going to type it. Key code.right arrow. There it is. So once we press our right arrow, we can go and call our coroutine. So let's go start coroutine, and then we will call roll. Okay, so that should work now. So let's just go and test that quickly and see what this does. Honestly, I don't expect this to work properly at start. Okay, so you can see it's definitely rotating, but it's not rotating properly, because you can see that it's not finishing flat on the platform. So when we eventually have it working properly, it should rotate so that the new face that's facing down on top of the platform will sit flush on the platform. So let's go and see what else we have to do. So we've tested the code and it doesn't work, so we need to go and change the center point. So let's see, we need to change the rotation center point. Okay, so what I mean by this is, if we go and press play quickly again, you can see that the cube, when we rotate it, it's rotating. If I just move this here, you can see that if I rotate it, you can see that the center point of the rotation happens is kind of in the middle of the cube, which is not what we want. We want it to be along one of the edges so that it rotates on the edge. So instead of it rotating with a center point in the middle, we need to move it somewhere down, but let's go out of here quickly. So we need to move it so that the center point is, hold on. Let me go here so we can see it better. So we need to move it so that the center point is no longer in the middle of the cube here, but it's over here on one of the edges that you're rotating the cube. So for now, it's going to be on the right edge here, but later we'll have to put it there, and then on that side, and then as well on that side. So what we need to do is, because this is in the middle, we kind of need to move it to the edge. So I believe the cube is, what is it? It is, can't remember how big the cube size is. Let's have a look here quickly. Yeah, so the cube is 1 unit in size. So that means to get from the middle of it to the edge, it's going to be half of that. So we kind of need to go from the middle out half and then down half to get to the bottom. And that would make a lot more sense if I did it from the side. So if we do this, and I explain it like this. So think about it like this. If we have our cube here, the center point of the rotation angle, or where it rotates, is over here. So the cube, okay, I can't use Unity, but there is the cube. It's going to rotate as if that was like a center pivot point. So it's going to rotate around that angle, or around that point, which is not what we want. We wanted to move it to the side half a unit, because the size of the cube is 1 unit, so that's going to be half. Then we also need to move it down another half unit so that it's on the edge of the cube, if that makes sense. So that all happens in the middle, the very middle. So moving it to the side and then down will eventually put it in the middle of the cube. And then later on in the video, when we get to do it on all the different directions of the rotation, we will do it for each side, depending on which direction you want to move the cube in. So let's go and start doing that. So the first thing we need to do is we need to change the rotation center point. And to do that, we need to create a rotation center variable. So let's go and do that in a while loop. So what we want to do is, underneath our remaining angle, we need to go and create a rotation center variable. And we're going to make this equal to the transform.position plus the half of the vector 3.right plus half of vector 3.down. So where's our script? So here, this is going to be vector 3 is going to be equal to, no, what am I doing? We forgot the name. Vector 3 rotation center is going to be equal to, what did I just say? Transform dot position. So get the position of the cube plus the vector 3 dot right, I believe, divided by 2 plus vector 3. What did I do? Vector 3 dot down, I think it was. Yeah, down. And that's also going to be divided by 2, so that will give us the center point on the edge that we wanted to rotate on. Okay, so that's our rotation center. So what's next? So we've done that. The next thing we need to do is store the axis of rotation. So we also want to figure out which axis we want to rotate on. And for now, because we're going right, I think we're going right, it's going to be along, which axis is it along? It's going to be along, I think it's a Z axis. Nope, that's scale. Why am I using scale? Yeah, so it's going to be along the scale, the Z axis, so it's going to rotate this way just for now while we work on the right. And then when we go and work on all the different angles, we will have to change it to specifically reference or use the axis of rotation for the different directions. So we can do that by going, I believe this is also going to be a vector 3. Let's call this rotation axis. And that is going to be, it's going to be vector 3 dot back. So I'll save that. And then let's see what's next. So we've, now we need to go and use the rotate around method to rotate around the edge. So let's go, instead of using transform.rotate, we can go and say transform dot, let's just replace it with rotate around. And now we need to pass in the center. So it's going to be our rotation center. And then it is going to be our rotation axis. And then we need to pass in the rotation angle. So we'll save that like that. And let's go give this a test and see what happens. Did I save it? Yeah, I saved it. So I don't expect this to work fully yet, but let's see what we get. Okay. So you can see we're getting there. The cube is now moving to the next place, but it's not quite moving. It's not quite moving how we want it to. So we need to go and figure out why that is. So I'm just going to carry on working on our code. Let me just turn my light on quick, so I'll be back in a few seconds. Actually, where is my, I probably should have, here it is. Okay, so we're back. I probably should have checked that before, but anyway, sorry for that. So the next thing we need to do is make a check to not allow the player to move or rotate the cube when the cube is currently rotating. So to do that, we will create a what's called a boolean, just to check to see if the cube is rotating, because if it is rotating, we don't really want the player to be allowed to tell the cube to rotate more, because it's just going to mess up the game. So underneath our speed variable, let's create a boolean rather. Boolean is going to be is moving. I will set that to be equal to false, because when you start the game, it's not going to be moving unless you go and tell it to move. So before we do anything, we are going to say if is moving. So if is moving is equal to true, we need to return. So no, we don't do anything. If I can spell properly. And then what we also need to do is we only need to, when we go and if is moving is false, then we need to go and tell our cube to roll, but we also need to update our is moving to equal to true, because that will then allow us to not move the cube while our cube is rotating. So once the cube has finished rotating, we can then go and say is moving is equal to false, because that will allow us to, if I can spell it correctly, that will allow us to then go and rotate our cube onto one of the other faces. So I'll save that. So let's see what else is what else we have to do. So make a check as is moving. Yeah, so make sure the angle of rotation is never greater than the angle remaining. So that, let's just go and play this quick and see what happens. So you can see that if we, I'm sorry, what? Oh, okay, so that's working. That's not supposed to work. I'm confused. Hold on. That, I was not expecting that to work. But you can see that it is working, but it's only working in the right direction. So if I go and press one of the other arrow keys, is not working because we've only programmed it to work on the right with the right arrow. But something that was supposed to happen is the cube was not supposed to rotate all the way. In fact, it was supposed to like stop and keep rotating a little bit more every single time. And eventually, if we go and play now, you can see that the more we rotate it, the more angle towards the ground it gets. Well, that's supposed to happen. So we need to add in a check for that. At least that did happen when the first time I programmed it to test if it would work. So we're going to go and put this check in anyway, because if we don't, it might come up later on. So let's go and program that in now quickly. So to do that, we need to go and add a rotation angle. Well, we need to update the rotation angle to equal math.f minimum of the 2 of what is it of the time.delta time times the speed. Where is our rotation angle? Here it is. So here we can just go and say minimum what am I doing? Max. What am I saying? Math f. This is going to be math.f dot minimum. And then what we need to do is say time.delta time times speed. And then we also need to add in our remaining angle. So that will make sure that we no longer get that extra bit of rotation when we go and rotate our cube along the different axes. So you can see that it still works fine, but now we need to go and start working on all of the different angles. So we should be able to just reuse the code, but now we can just simply tell it which direction to rotate because it's currently working. The only thing we need to do now is flip the direction of which we tell it. So to do that, let's go to our update method and we can simply copy, we're not going to copy it for now. We will say else if, and then now we will copy this up to there and then put this in here. So if input key dot keycode dot, we'll start with the left arrow. So if we press the left arrow, then we also want to start the coroutine like that. So I'm just going to copy this 3 times. And then let's see, else if, what have I done here? Okay, so we don't need that one and we don't need that one. That should be fine. So let's go and update this. So if the keycode dot left arrow, if the keycode dot up arrow, and if keycode dot down arrow. So now we need to tell our roll coroutine method which direction we want it to rotate in. So we'll go and add in a vector 3, and we'll call this direction. And then we can go and pass in our direction into when we start our coroutine. So here we can go and say vector 3 dot for our right is obviously going to be right. So that's going to be moving in the right direction. For the left arrow, it's going to be vector 3 dot left. For the up arrow, we're not going to move it up. In fact, we are going to move it forward because we don't want it to move up and down yet on the y-axis. We'll probably do that later on in the game series if we make a game that supports different height levels. So the down is not going to be down, it's going to be vector 3 dot back. So that should allow us to move in different directions. So let's do this. Let's just tidy this up because it looks weird. All right. So now we need to fix our roll method to reflect our different directions, because if we play our game, you can still see that nothing is gonna be different, other than if we press any of our arrow keys is moving in the wrong direction, unless we press the right arrow key, because every time we press one of the keys, we're just calling the same roll method that is telling our cube to move in the right direction. So what's next? So let's handle the rotation in different directions. So we've done it in our update method. So we've added our parameter. We need to change the center rotation. So let's go and do that. So our center rotation, which is here, you can see that before we changed it to accommodate the different directions, it was purely to move in the right direction. So instead of going vector3.right here, we can simply just replace this with our direction. So that's fine. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to change the axis, I believe. So update the axis of rotation. The axis will be perpendicular to the direction parameter and to the y axis. So where's our scene gone? Okay, so here it is. So what did I just say? I've forgotten already. So the axis will be perpendicular to the direction parameter and the y axis. So you can see that if here on our cube, let's get our drawing thing. So here is the y-axis is obviously going this direction, right? And the direction of travel, which in this case will be the arrow direction, the axis is obviously going to be perpendicular to that, because we can either go this way, this way, this way, and then this way. So let's just draw that like that, so it looks kind of perpendicular, if that makes sense. Actually, let's do that again. So the arrows will go this way. So these are all the directions of travel. So you can see that let's put that as a y. Just ignore that one because that's a bit confusing. So you can see the axis rotation is always going to be perpendicular to the y-axis as well as the direction. So that way the cube can simply just fall onto the face that it wants. Well, not that once, but in that direction that you want it to, or that you're telling it to rotate onto. So let's go and program that into here. So we need to change our rotation axis. And that should be fairly simple. So we should just be able to tell it to be perpendicular to the y-axis and the direction. So to do that, there is a function in Unity that is called the cross function. So we can just say vector3.cross, and then we can tell it to use the y-axis, which is going to be vector3.up, and then it's going to be depending on that direction that we are traveling in. So we should be able to leave that like that. So let's go back to our checklist and see what is next. So axis, yeah, we've done that. Use the cross product, which we've done. And now we can call the coroutine depending on which direction we wanted to rotate, which is all of this that we did here. We just did it first because I felt like it. So that should be fine. So if we save that, we now should be able to see in our game, we should have a moving cube in all different directions. So if we go to the right, you can see it's moving. If we go down, or if I use the down arrow key, it's going to move us towards us. If we move left, it's going to move the cube to the left. And if I press the up arrow, it's going to move the cube away from us towards the other, I don't know, towards that way. So that is our cube, or that's the cube movement of the game. So now that we have the cube movement of the game working, I can explain to you what the objective of this game is going to be. So just ignore the fact that this is the first level, and this is going to be an easy level. So there is obviously a very easy route from point A, which is our pink slab here, to point B, which is our end slab, which is the green one. So when we play the game, this is level 1. All you have to do is move from here, navigate your way across the level onto the endpoint, which is here, the green slab, and then towards the like later on in the series, towards the end, we're going to add in some animations that will play when we reach this endpoint. So like if you've been watching our Cube Quest game, when you reach the endpoint in the maze, a panel pops up and it tells you to go to the next level. We'll add that into this one as well. But later on, if in the game, what we'll do is, why did I just press play? What we'll do is we'll make the levels a lot harder. So I don't really know if this is going to work, but let's go and disable that. And then say, for example, this is going to be one of the levels. You'll have to navigate yourself all the way to the end. With obviously it's easy again because I didn't think that through. But if you do something like that and there is no platform underneath your cube, the cube eventually will drop down and then that will be the game over and you'll have to start the level again. So we'll add in different things like that. But yeah, that's pretty much it for today's episode. So we've done the cube movement. The next episode we will start working on probably going off the edge and restarting the level, or allowing the player to restart the level. So that's pretty much it for today. So thanks for watching again, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Goodbye.